Hello and welcome back to Fluttering Butterflies. My name is Michelle, and for today's video I'd really like to do a top 5 Wednesday video. This week's topic is top 5 books you'd save in a fire, and I just couldn't resist doing this topic. Top 5 Wednesday is a weekly meme hosted by Ginger Reads Lainey, and I will leave a link down below to the Goodreads group. When I first started thinking about this topic, my mind immediately went to my collections of books. I have a big collection of Robert Sabuda pop-up books that I love. A lot of them are imported, some of them are hard to get. I also thought of all of my signed books, my John Green signed The Fault in Our Stars, the little Hankler fish. I thought of my Mallory Blackman signed collection, all of the wonderful dedications that I've had from some of my favourite UK YA authors. And in the end, I decided not to choose any of my signed books or any of my Robert Sabuda pop-up collection. Instead, the 5 books that I'm going to share with you today all have an incredibly personal connection to me. So the first book, I'm sure nobody is going to be surprised, is this copy of the Boxcar Children. This is the first book in a series by Gertrude Chandler Warner. I don't remember when or where I got it, possibly in a secondhand bookstore when I was younger. I love this book. It is one of my favorites, and if something happened to my house and it went up in flames, I would be inconsolable if I lost this book. Inconsolable. I know I could get a different copy of this book, but it wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't be my book that I've had for close to 30 years. It wouldn't have all of these dents and bashes to the cover. And for my second choice, it is, again, my copy of Charlotte's Web by E.B. White. I've told this story before. This was my favorite book for a very long period of time. I used to carry it around with me everywhere I went. I got in a fight with my brother, and in retaliation for something, he ripped the front cover off my book, and I had to tape it back together. While I did cry bucket loads of tears at the time, now I wouldn't want to trade this copy of this book for absolutely anything in the world. My third choice today is a book that has been with me at every major turning point in my life, I think. This book is one that helped me to fall in love with my husband. It helped me when I was first starting my new first job at Arby's. It helped me in my transition from the United States to England nearly 15 years ago. It's been the icebreaker at so many different weird occasions, and that is The Book of Questions by Gregory Stock. This is exactly what it says. It's a book of questions. For me, it's always been a little bit difficult opening up to other people and things, and this helped. I needed something to help relationships along at certain periods of my life, so I love this book. Going back to my selection process for these books today, I'm sure that at different times, and at a different time period, I would choose different books. Without going into it in too much detail, I'm feeling really nostalgic for books that I shared with my dad. So for this next book, I would be very heartbroken to lose this copy of The Catcher in the Rye by JD Salinger. This is a very old, very battered copy of this book, and this book was my dad's. I can't remember if he read it in high school or if he read it at university, but he bought this book, he read it and loved it, and he kept it with him for a very, very long time. And I found it on our family bookshelf one day, and I pulled it out and started reading it. And it was one of the first adult books, I guess, that I started to read. And he came home and he saw me reading it, and he took the book from me and he said, this was a book that I read and I loved as a teenager, as a young adult, and it meant so much to me that I decided to keep it. And he was really quite happy for me to keep the book. I did read it, I did love it, but for me, saving this book would not be about saving this story. It would be about saving those memories that I had about sharing a book with my dad. And along those same lines, the fifth and final book that I would want to save is this book. The Diary of a Young Girl by Anne Frank. It is one that I came across when I was maybe 12, and I read it and I fell in love with her writing and her perspective on life and everything about it. And after reading Anne Frank's diary, I kind of became obsessed with reading more memoirs and diaries and the experiences of people who went through World War II. I was really interested in the human perspective. Years ago, my dad came to stay. He came to stay with us, and he stayed for about 3 months. And during that time, Anne and I were both working. This was before children, and my dad would sometimes go on trips to other places in Europe to make the most of his trip and see everything that he could. And one of the places that he went to during this time is to Amsterdam, and he visited the Anne Frank house. And what I find really amusing, and it's something that I think about every time I pull this book off the shelf, is that my dad went to the Anne Frank house and he started speaking to some of the people who worked there. And he said to them, "My daughter is obsessed with Anne Frank. She loves hers, and is there any way at all that I could get something of Anne Frank's to take back to my daughter?" And obviously they said no, because Anne Frank is a national treasure and an important historical figure. But instead he did bring me back this beautiful hardback edition of the diary. So again, I think this choice is less about the book itself and more about the meaning that I've placed upon the book. That's it. Those are the 5 books that I'd want to save from a fire. Let me know what books you would want to save from a fire. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.